and you're completely freaked out by either running a credit report or not knowing how to read a tenant credit report, if you are, you're in absolutely the right place because tonight, Gil Donkersgood and I,
Hello.
Nelda Schulte, are going to walk you through how to read a tenant credit report. And we'll also tell you all the good stuff that you need to know about what to look for, what are the red flags, and we'll even talk about where you get one, how much they cost, and all the stuff that you need to know about basically reading a tenant credit report. So, thank you for joining us. I'm, as mentioned before, Nelda Schulte, and my website is neldaschulte.com. And if you like to read all the information in one place at one time that we talk about on the show and other shows, why, you can buy my book. It's called Canadian Landlord's Handbook. And you can get it from Amazon.ca, either in the paperback form or you can go ahead and splurge $1.49 and get the online version. So for that price, it's really hard not to be an educated landlord. And if you like this show and you like these programs, hit the subscribe button and also like it and recommend it to your friends and your family and anyone else who's new to landlording, because this is all useful information that can save you time and money in the future. So that's why we're here, to help you out, to save you time and money. All right. Let's just jump right into it. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to talk about how to read a tenant credit report. So first of all, here we go. How is a score rated? Gil, do you want to chat about this one?
Actually, can I hate to do this, but can we just back up a little bit
Yeah,
and talk about why we should get a credit report?
absolutely. In fact, I will just stop this right now and you can just share away.
Thank you.
Gil,
So
why should we get a credit report?
that's a very good question. It's been our experience that a person's credit history tells us a lot about their personality and their willingness to respect rules and obligations. If a person has a bad credit report, there's a very good chance that they don't take financial responsibilities seriously. If they don't take financial responsibilities seriously, they may not be inclined to pay their rent on time. Or they may be having creditors chasing after them who are going to take their money before it gets to you and your rent. A credit report really, it's not always an absolute, but it usually is an indication of the responsibility that a potential tenant is going to take when it comes to your property. So it's not the only metric, but it's a very valuable one.
Mm-hmm. So what all is on a credit report, Gil, now that you're answering questions about credit reports and why you should have one?
Well, the biggest number, and we could put the screen up now if you would.
I will.
Thank you. Right at the very top on the left is a number that gives you a really good idea as to their overall credit worthiness. Now, there are a lot of things that will impact this, but that number is the first metric. It's like your grade on a report card. You might have a C and a D and a B and an A, but your overall credit or your overall report card might be a B, and it's sort of a collaboration of all of the different factors that are being measured in order to come up with that number.
I actually really like that analogy to a report card. It's the average, it's the sum of the total.
It is. So, Nelda, what would you consider a good number?
I would say, well, minimum standards for that are considered as decent are 600 and above. 600 is not a really high score. It means the person pays their bills on time. They might have a high debt load, but it means that they're still paying their bills on time. So anything above a 600 or a 650 is really good. Anything below a 600 you should stay away from. So why should you stay away from anything below a 600, Gil?
There are a few reasons. Quite often, it's an indication that a person does not pay their bills. That to me is always a cause for concern. Um, it might be an indication that they are very close to maximum in all of their credit cards or in all of their credit, so they don't have any wiggle room. That's a couple of things that are going to impact it. Bankruptcy, which is not quite the same as paying their bills, and bankruptcy is something that we typically consider more individually, I would say, than not paying bills. Collections, which is not paying bills. That's a few things that are going to drive a person below 600. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, those are mostly, that's it. It's if they're not paying their bills on time, that can drop their score significantly. Or if they haven't paid their bills at all. You know, we've seen credit scores that were F because they give you a numeric rating and they also give you a letter grade rating. So they'll have like A, of course, or A plus is way at the top. Credit scores go from anywhere from 100 to 900. If you have a 900 credit score, I've never seen one before. I thought it was just kind of a unicorn. But if you have a 900 credit score, you've got an A plus credit score. If you've got a 100 credit score, you've got like below an F score. And I've seen those before, where people absolutely don't refuse to manage their money in any way, shape, or form. So in the middle is where you get kind of like a 600, or actually better. You've got people who pay their bills on time and take their financial responsibility seriously.
Right, and that's what we want from our tenants.
Yeah, we should talk a little bit about how the credit bureaus come up with the numbers. Because every time I research this, I'm always kind of interested by how they come up with the algorithms. So it's based on 5 factors. The first one is 35%, which is the largest part of how your credit score is calculated, is on your payment history. So 35%, the bulk of your credit score is based on payment history, or the bulk of your tenant's credit score is based on their payment history. And then second in line, 30% is the utilization ratio. So that means if they've got $100,000 in credit and they've used $99,900, it's going to drop their credit rating because they're right up at the top of the limit that they can borrow.
Of their available credit.
Of their available credit rate. There's no buffer zone. So, and then the number 3 is 15% is a credit history. So how long have you had credit? And that actually counts for a fair amount. 15% is a big chunk. 10% are public records. So those are collections, liens.
Bankruptcies would go in there, I think.
Yeah, it would be. And then 20% are inquiries. So let's say, and I've seen this many times, let's say somebody goes out to buy a used car and they get 5 credit hits within one day. That is going to drop their credit score significantly. If you get, let's say, 1 hard hit to your credit report once a year, that's not going to really impact it all that much. Or a couple hard hits a year won't impact it that much. But if, let's say, they're applying for a loan, they want to get a new car, they're getting a new cell phone, and they're getting all those hard hits to their credit score within a very short period of time, it's severely going to impact their score. So those are the 5. So payment history, utilization ratio, credit history, public records, and inquiries. That's how your credit score is calculated. That's how your tenant's credit score is calculated. And then Gil talked about the summary, which is great. So let's take a look at this report. So right at the very top hand corner, what do we have, Gil?
Top left hand corner is the actual score.
Right.
And this person is 750, which is very good.
Mm-hmm. And then there's another thing that it has this other little paragraph underneath. I don't know how big or small it is on your screen. On mine, it's pretty small, but I know what this is. So it says, what's impacting your score? So the credit bureaus will say you have too much credit, or you don't have enough credit, or, the makeup. They have their reasons why your score could be higher. Those ones aren't really hugely significant. And then they have something called the bottom line. And that's what lenders would consider as factors in whether or not you're high risk to give you more money. So that doesn't, oh, here it is. I can, hey, I can enlarge. I didn't know I could do that on this screen.
It is a bit fuzzy, but oh, look at that. That's getting really readable.
Okay, so it tells you what the factors are that the lenders would consider and what would influence your decision in lending you money. So that's what that is.
Right.
And then the
Although
next,
those
sorry,
bottom lines aren't necessarily going to impact us greatly as
no.
landlords because we're not lending money, but we're cognizant as a result of the basic rating just how good these people are. I mean, the bottom line, if it said, I'm not sure if it would say this person does not make their payments, I'm sure that would show up in the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. So now I'm going to click this one off and I'm going to show the next one. Where's share screen?
Boy, when you make the document bigger, you make me much bigger too.
How did I do that? No, I did it.
There's a plus button on the top right beside the 100% at the very top of your screen.
Okay, if you say so. I thought I just scrolled.
Probably, but there is that magnifying glass. Do you see that?
Oh, yes, I do. Okay, there we go. Oh, and that made it smaller for some reason. I don't know if you could see it at all. Okay, but anyway, this next page I wanted to show you because this is the identifying section for tenants. So when you're running a tenant application form, you always ask them for their current and their previous up to 3 to 5 year rental history. And that will also show up on the tenant's credit report. So that's what this shows here. It'll show the person's name, it gives their alias if they have one, current and their previous addresses, their social insurance number, sometimes, their telephone number, their date of birth, and the current and previous employers. So you can cross-reference that with your tenant application, which is really super helpful. So let's say they've, like everyone gets one address wrong or something. Like I can't always remember back 5 years. I know when Gil and I were renting a place in a condo, I could never remember the address when I was filling out forms when I was buying the house. And I'm sure if they ran the credit report, they would get the wrong address because I put the wrong one in. But it's okay to forget one or two addresses or like one address. But if they get every single one of them wrong for the last 5 years, that's a big red flag.
Then you know that they're probably giving you misinformation in order to hide some ugly truth about themselves.
Yeah.
So I mean, Nelda, if you were filling out an application and you got maybe the wrong apartment unit, but the right street, you know, that would probably be overlooked. Especially if you could cross-reference it with a landlord reference check. But again, if everything is wrong or if it's evident that these people are trying to hide the truth, then you want to start digging a little deeper if you even want to dig at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're starting to see red flags, so first thing you want to look at, if we're just going to review the very few things that we talked about so far, look at the credit score in the upper left-hand corner, whether it's Equifax or TransUnion, it'll give you a credit score. If the credit score is below 600, stop. Okay, if the credit score is 600 or above, move on. Cross-reference their addresses and cross-reference their employment history against the application, the tenant application. And if that's good, great, keep looking. So
now, a lot of people may not think that you're actually going to do a credit report, and a lot of landlords don't. So they will give misinformation with the assumption they won't get busted.
Yeah.
So this is why we would very strongly encourage, tell people you're going to do their credit report, get their permission, and then do it.
Yeah, I have a number of friends who say that they tell people they're going to run a credit report, but then they don't actually run the credit report. And they haven't had any problems with it. But my experience has been not everybody's that forthcoming. Like we have some tenants who will say, yeah, go ahead, run a credit report. There isn't anything you're going to find on there that's untoward. And then you run it, and there's all kinds of stuff on there. And they're like, oh, I don't know how that got on there. So if you just trusted their word and they said, oh yeah, go ahead and run it, it's going to be good, and you're like, oh, that's okay, I don't need to run it, then you would have never actually found out that you've got a scammer on your hands, which you don't want.
They then have this deer in the headlights look, and they say, "Oh, I have no idea why my credit report's that bad." Um, you have to be a bit careful how much you disclose, but yeah, it's we have had people who have refused to give a credit report and or to refuse to sign, and we just say no, we're not interested in pursuing. We've had people who have said, I have no idea why I have such a bad credit report. Um, Typically, people do know why they have a bad credit report. Another really good uh, prefix, or I'm not sure the word, but prior to doing the credit report, ask them when they agree to the credit report, ask them, will we see anything?
Mm-hmm.
Because now they're going to have an opportunity to say, there's this, there's that. And this is what I'm doing to resolve the problems. It's the ones who say, I have no idea. They're the ones that I tend to be suspicious of.
Yeah. So we're not looking for perfection. You know, anyone can make screw ups. We all do. But you are looking for honesty here. And yeah, if you've got 5 collections after you, you are going to know you've got 5 collections after you because they're going to be harassing you. So you can't say you didn't know that was on your report. Okay, so, and speaking of credit inquiries on your file, that's if you go down to the 3rd page of the credit report or whichever page it shows up on your Equifax or TransUnion report, you'll see the number of credit inquiries on your file, and you can see what dates they were run. This isn't really something that you really need to be too concerned with. Your main concern as a landlord is to look at the credit score and to check their name and their addresses and their work history. If their credit's lower than they thought it was going to be, then yeah, you could go back to the credit inquiries and see, why it dropped lower than what they thought it was by the number of credit inquiries and the frequency that they were run on their credit report, which is what this page is about.
And that leads me to another point, which is hard hits versus soft hits.
Yeah.
Because a hard hit does impact someone's credit score more aggressively than a soft hit. And quite often people will say, well, I don't want to have a hit on my credit, so I don't want you to do a credit check on me. A soft hit is not a huge hit, and it's not going to impact the tenant all that much compared to asking for a car loan or a credit card. So if they're not willing to do the credit report because they're concerned about the hit, either they're already in a tenuous position or they just don't want you to know what's going on.
Yeah, usually the latter. But regular inquiries or hard hits, or anyone who's a credit grantor or an authorized party who can grant people credit, that's a hard hit. So a car loan, a bank loan, phones, even utilities, those are all hard hits. If you're getting utilities for the first time. Sometimes bank loans, sometimes even utilities will run a credit check on their clients once a year just to see if they're continuously credit worthy, and that's a soft hit. They can do that. They are allowed to do that, and they do. So you might see those credit inquiries on your report, and you're like, well, no one asked me. But they can do that once you signed up for the loan. Soft hits are, let's say, credit grantors with whom the tenant already has an existing relationship, and you've requested a periodic review of the consumer's credit, and that includes landlords. So when you're running a credit report for your tenants, it's a soft hit. So it's not going to affect the credit rating. Their credit rating might go down 1 or 2 points, and then it goes up immediately within the month. So it's not a hard hit. It's not going to affect it indefinitely or for a long term. Yeah, and then there are other inquiries. So that's anyone else who's authorized who's requested a consumer credit information for a non-credit related purpose. So that's the apartment rental, employment insurance. Those are soft hits and they don't affect your credit rating. So I hope that makes it clear, because we always get that all the time, as people are like, oh, I don't want anybody to run a credit report on me because I don't want to drop my credit score. So there's a difference between hard hits and soft hits. Landlords fall under the soft hit category. Alrighty, so we'll get rid of this guy. And I will go over to my fourth credit. Okay. Yes, this will work much better. All right. Public records. Do you want to talk about public records?
I'm going to give this one to you if you don't mind, because it's very hard for me to read this.
Okay.
Sorry.
So the public records section includes bankruptcies, judgments, foreclosure, and collections. It's only 10% of the tenant's credit score, except for bankruptcies, which, as Gil mentioned, should be treated individually. And the rest, like the bankruptcies, or not bankruptcies, judgments, foreclosures, and collections are huge red flags for landlords. If you see those, I would say run away. Sometimes people who are in the process of an ugly divorce, the
Yes.
spouse will leave them a parting gift. They'll try and not bankrupt them, but they'll try and give them a horrible credit score. So they'll run the credit card into the ground.
And there are other situations like illness, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Someone may lose their job because of illness. And in these cases, what you want to look for is, are you building yourself back up?
Mm-hmm.
And we have a few things that we'll do. We'll ask them to get statements from their bank or something like that, just to indicate that they are now in good standing and that they've been for a while, or that sort of a thing, just to give some assurance. Because just because a person went through a bad time once doesn't make them a bad person.
No. So bankruptcies are a lot of times you have really good people who've really had hard times. Life has happened to them, and if they're willing to talk to you about it and let you know what they're doing to make amends, we worked with people like that and have never had any problem with them.
But in this case, what you want to do is you want to make sure you shore up your defenses by having them jump through the necessary hoops to prove that they are actually making things better.
Exactly. Yeah.
Other things,
Oh,
a person might lose their job in a bad economic situation. Now they've got their job back, but for a while they weren't able to make payments because they didn't have an income. There are so many situations where a person, like valid situations, where a person can justify the situation they're in and will work their way out of it.
Yeah. By the way, bankruptcies go on record in most provinces for 6 to 7 years, except for Prince Edward Island, which keeps bankruptcies on records for 10 years. And if people have 2 bankruptcies on records, which we've seen before, then those bankruptcies are kept on record for 14 years. Yeah. So bankruptcies are pretty serious business for your credit report. And they stay on the record a really long time. All right. Now, yes, on the very bottom, I wanted to show that there's, it says collections and judgments. I've got a couple arrows that point to them there, and that's under public records. And so if you want to see if there's been any bad activity that you're going to see some red flags for, that's where you're going to see it, is under the public records section of the credit report. And that's it for that one. Now, I think I've got one more. Yes, I do. Okay. Yes, so this one is still under the public records. Consumer reports show up under there as well. And here we've got a voluntary bankruptcy and secured loan. So that shows up as well. And return checks. So any of those sorts of things are going to show up under public records. And that's where you look for them, on the bottom of the credit report.
A lot of return checks would also scare me.
Yeah. Yes. So basically what you're looking for in a credit report for a tenant is what, Gil?
For a tenant, you're looking for a willingness to pay their bills, responsibility. I mean, really, that's the big word as far as I'm concerned. Responsibility.
And how do you find that on their credit report?
Well, you start with a number on the very top, and you just look for any of the exceptions, like the bankruptcies, the late payments, the return checks, anything that would indicate that they're not responsible with paying. And the other thing, and this is to review, is just to make sure that they haven't told any blatant lies with regards to their previous addresses and their places of work. We've talked about doing references. We cross-reference the application form with the information on the credit report, and then we call to confirm that everything also tracks between the conversations we have with the references that were provided, like the work references. This person really did work here. I mean, it's on the credit report, but we also want to confirm it by talking to their manager or whoever they provide from the workplace as a reference. And we also want to do everything we can to make sure when we do a landlord reference check that the person that we're speaking with is indeed the person who owns the property that's listed both in the application and on the credit report.
Yeah, but that's for another conversation.
That's fine. Yep.
And there are some very cool sci-fi tools that are now becoming mainstream for landlords that our guest from Rent Panda talked about. One was you can have it's income or not income. It's government issued ID verification. So our applications always ask for government issued ID, so a driver's license or a passport. But now beyond that, you can upload that one onto the report, and then it also does facial recognition. So you can see if the person who's applying for your rental property is the same person that's on the driver's license or the passport or other government issued ID. So that's pretty cool. And then they've got one step farther, which is a little bit invasive, and that's you can actually go into people's bank accounts and you can see whether they paid their rent on time every month for the last 12 months. It shows regular payments. So that's another step that you can do. So landlording is getting to be far more technical than it ever has been. I think COVID kind of helped a lot with that because property technology hadn't really caught up to the rest of the world, but within the last 2 years, it's caught up in spades, simply because we've had to. So that's really great. So the credit report is one line of defense. It's a very important one. There are other ones as well. You've got your application and facial recognition, all the other things that you can get through some of the other platforms. And then let's talk about where you get a credit report. If we're just going back to a credit report and you just want to run a credit report, you don't want to do facial recognition or check through the bank accounts, where can you get a credit report if you're a landlord and you've never done this before?
So we've in the past used TVS, that's Tenant Verification Services. That's one place.
There's Front Lobby. Front Lobby also has it has credit reports, and they're very reasonably priced. Like you're looking at under $20, which is great. And then you can also report tenants who are good, and you can report tenants who are bad. So it'll help tenants who are good. It attaches to their credit score, their rent, payments attached to the credit score, and you can help them raise their credit with
Yes.
rent. It
If they're
also
trying to, if they're trying to rebuild their credit, this is a step in that direction.
Yeah, Front Lobby is brilliant for that. And I have an affiliate link for you so that you get a coupon. You get a discount if you want to sign up. And then there are a lot of property management software applications that include credit checks as part of that. So either Equifax or TransUnion. And I think Tenant Cube, I believe, has that one as well. So Tenant Cube, I think, links into the credit bureaus. I'm not sure whether it's Equifax or TransUnion, but you can actually run a credit report through their software. So that's also a really good deal because then you can input all the information onto their property management software, and then it's all there for you all in one place at one time. You don't have to go between different spreadsheets. So credit reports are not very expensive. They're usually under $20. Sometimes a little over $20 if you're doing a one-off service like TVS. They don't take you very long to do. By the time you input the information, it usually spits back the results in about 2 minutes. And I'm not kidding, 2 minutes. Very fast.
So here's a question for you. I've got this credit report. What should I do with it?
Very good question.
Well, thank you.
Because this falls under the Freedom of Information and Privacy Act, you must shred it. Although, I was going to say in TVS and some of the other systems that I would log on to, the credit report only stays online within a certain time period, and poof, it disappears. So, but if you print it out and you have it on that client's file, you must dispose of it in a way that aligns with the FOIP guidelines.
That also means if you download a PDF, you want to make sure you delete it. Mm-hmm. You want to make sure that you cannot be compromised and provide this secured data to bad actors.
Yes, or if you store credit reports, which I don't recommend that you ever do, you're supposed to keep them in a locked filing cabinet in an office that can also lock.
Yeah, professional property managers quite often are required to keep that information for a longer period of time as in case they get audited. But we're not typically professional property managers. I mean, we did that for a while. And once we stopped, we submitted returned all of our documentation to our brokerage who had all the facilities necessary to deal with that stuff. But as smaller property managers or property investors, we don't have to answer to a brokerage or anything like that. So we don't need to keep that information, and we're better off not to.
No, don't keep it. As someone who has had her credit cards hacked 5 times in the last 10 months, do not keep people's personal information.
Yeah, you don't want things to be tracked back to you.
No, absolutely not. So that's it in a nutshell. We're just going to summarize, Gil. We're going to say run a credit report, spend the $20, or join Tenant Cube or Front Lobby. And
if I may make one more comment towards that, the money you lose by getting someone bad is going to be way more than the money you would pay doing the credit report.
Yeah, and it'll take way more time than running a credit report. Yeah, I found that running the credit report was fast, but you have to give your data to the credit bureau so that they know that you are an actual landlord and that you have your name on the title. And so they want all the evidence for all that. So that can take a little bit of time to process. But then once you're in and you're running the credit report, it's very fast. So yes, very well worth your while. You're looking for the number at the top. You're looking for any red flags, such as inconsistent addresses, false employment records,
history of
non-payment. That's the big one. And then outside of that, you're good to go. Those are the main things that you're looking for. Do they pay their bills on time every month? And if they do, you want them. If they don't, let them move on.
The other point that I would like to make real briefly is, we've said this before, the the first contact with a potential tenant is sort of them putting their best foot forward. And if they're pushing back on a credit report, that's them when they're being as nice to you as they're ever going to be.
Yeah. And if they're getting rude, I've had people call me multiple times and tell me what an idiot I was because I was running a credit report, and couldn't I see that they were a lawyer, a business owner, whatever, fill in the blank. Obviously, I was an idiot. They were going to try and slander my name, blah, 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 blah. So I'm saying smoke screen, smoke screen, smoke screen. I'm thinking, you got something to hide, don't you?
The best defense is a good offense.
Yeah. I would just say, I'm sorry. Even though it was my company, I'd say, I'm sorry, that's the company policy and I'm not allowed to deviate from it. So all the best to you. I'm sure you'll find another place. So let them go. So yes, the good ones don't mind running a credit report at all. The bad ones do. Good. You caught them, let them move on. So that's our nutshell version. We don't really have a lot more to say than that. It's really not that complicated, which I'm sure you're probably happy to hear. I know I was when I looked at the credit report. I thought, oh, this isn't so hard to do. Once I figured out, they've become much more easy to read too than they were in the past. They don't have as many codes and stuff. So yes, not hard to read at all. Once you've gone through them a couple times, it's smooth sailing. And if you want more resources, you know to go to nildaschulte.com. If you want tenant screening help, or if you want help on how to be a landlord, you know where to buy the book, amazon.ca. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us tonight. I hope this was helpful to you. And we're always happy to help you move forward and to support you in your landlording journey. And have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Next couple weeks is going to be, I have her card right here and I want to get her name right. It's called Please Organize My Life. Perfect timing for income tax season, wouldn't you say? And it's Gerald.
And spring cleaning.
Yes, and spring cleaning. Or if, for those of us who have aged parents and you have to help them clean out their property and it's an absolutely daunting task, Geraldine helps with that as well. So her name is Geraldine Wolstenholme, and she's a professional organizer, and she's fantastic. She's going to be on our May the 2nd show. So thanks again for joining us, and have a wonderful night.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.